We have the blood of the dragon.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. There are a ton of new House of the Dragon Season 3 teasers and footage that released in a bunch of new scenes, so we'll break it all down. Because it looks like the show is pushing deeper into the lore of the books in a way they started to during Season 1 and Season 2, doing things from the books that the original Game of Thrones series did not have time for. Always love when the shows try to do extra lore from the books, brand new stuff. We really could use a couple extra episodes per season for stuff like this. HBO, please do a couple extra episodes per season. We have also got New York Comic Con coming next week. George R. R. Martin is attending personally for the Night of the Seven Kingdoms panel that HBO is doing, so there is a pretty good chance we'll be getting a larger trailer for that. I will be doing videos for everything for the episodes when it does release, so if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get everything, because it is going to be really good next year, because we will finally have 2 Game of Thrones prequel series airing in the same year. Night of the Seven Kingdoms in January, then House of the Dragon Season 3 is supposed to start in June, according to HBO. Now they need to do is find a way to avoid those year-long breaks between seasons. But probably one of the biggest new scenes that just released is the return of the Green Men in Alys River's meeting with the Dragon Seeds. So this is a big deal and seems like it's similar to what they did in Season 2 with the Green Men when Daemon saw one in the Godswood at Harrenhal. Now, the presence of the Green Men also means this new scene with Alys Rivers and the Dragon Seeds is around Harrenhal too, because the Green Men are a sacred order entrusted with the guardianship of the Isle of Faces, which is right next to Harrenhal. Also, it seems like Alys Rivers is staying pretty close to Harrenhal for most of the run of the series. Because of its proximity, you could actually see the Isle of Faces in the background of all of Daemon's scenes in the Godswood during Season 2, looming very ominously because of how important it is for Daemon's future, and just generally the future of things that are happening on the show, and the history of the show in general, like the history of Westeros. There is a lot of lore behind the Green Men in the Isle of Faces. It's a place very powerful in the magic of the Children of the Forest and the Old Gods. There have been so many theories about the Green Men that they never had time for on the main show. They're believed to be a crossbred race of Children of the Forest and First Men, which is why they bear features of both, like they're larger than the Children of the Forest, but they look green, they have antler structures, little bits growing out of their bodies, in vastly longer lifespans than normal humans. That Season 2 cameo scene was enough visible evidence of what they actually look like, because it was their first time showing up on screen in a Game of Thrones TV show. They'd previously mentioned them in the Histories and the Lore DVD bonus features for the original series, but that's meant to be more of an animated retelling of things in the books, not actual live-action stuff. Their order, also technically their race, was created after the Children of the Forest war with the First Men in the signing of the pact between them declaring peace, which gave the First Men all the land in Westeros except for the Deep Forest, and in exchange the First Men would no longer cut down any weirwood trees anywhere in Westeros, and the children would remain in the forests. They got into a little bit of the lore of the Children of the Forest during the main show. George R. R. Martin will also probably add more lore to this as he continues the books, assuming that he does continue the books. But the whole idea is that the Children of the Forest were responsible for the creation of the White Walkers. The Night King himself is not a character from the books, but I think the idea is still the same. The children were responsible for the creation of the White Walkers using the magic of the old gods. Their intention was to use the First Men's overwhelming numbers against them. Their big advantage against the children is there were so many of them and so few of the children. Most of the events of the main show beyond Season 6 were them just coming up with their own story based on things that George R. R. Martin had implied to them or told them, so it wasn't a copy-paste from the books the way the previous seasons had been. But I think the concept is still the same. Ultimately, the children lost control of the White Walkers, and it led to the first Long Night, Azor Ahai, and the signing of the Pact for Peace, where the children banded together with the First Men to stop the White Walkers that first time. The reason why the Isle of Faces is so important is because that's where the actual pact between them was signed, and to bear witness to the grand occasion, all weirwood trees henceforth would have faces carved onto them, which is why you see them bleeding from their faces all the time. It's the sap bleeding from their faces, but it's also implied to actually be blood. So there's all this history and lore baked into the weirwoods themselves. There was actually a big Easter egg for George R. R. Martin himself. It's his face that's depicted on the weirwood in the Godswood at Harrenhal. So when Daemon is touching the weirwood's face, he's basically touching George R. R. Martin's face. Part of the pact itself also involved the creation of the Order of Green Men, and it sounds like it was also a combination of the children and first men volunteering part of their races to become the Green Men, essentially.
To seal the pact before the gods, the children carved a face in every weirwood tree on the island, which came to be known as the Isle of Faces.
There's nothing in the book so far that I can recall that says whether or not the Green Men replace members of its order over time with new ones, or if all the Green Men in present day are the same ones who are created or born right after the pact was signed many thousands of years ago in the books. On the show, it's more like many hundreds of years because they compress the timeline on the show. Personally, I think it's more likely that if they're living, breathing creatures and their human side would decrease their lifespan, they would have to replace their ranks periodically over the centuries, so they'd have to be creating new Green Men, very rarely though. The whole reason why they're relevant to Season 3 in the Dragon Seas is because in the Dance of the Dragon story in the books, Adam Valerion is said to have flown his dragon sea smoke to meet with the Green Men and take counsel before the second battle of Tumbleton. Based on all the Season 3 footage that we've gotten so far, the first battle of Tumbleton is the final big battle of Season 3. So it's either episodes 7, 8, and 9, or they condense it to just a couple episodes, or even less than that. But it's possible they combine both the first and second battles of Tumbleton. There are a lot of theories about this, but I think it's also likely that the Green Men who shows up when the Dragon Seas are meeting with Alys Rivers is just in the background doing his thing amongst the Weirwoods, the same way you saw them in the background of Daemon's scene. And Daemon himself didn't actually interact or talk to the Green Man, he just walked around in the background. It is also totally possible that they use this new scene to set up the idea that Adam will see the Green Man and return to the Isle of Faces in Season 4 to take counsel from them at that point. The other reason why the Isle of Faces and the Green Men are so important is because of Daemon's battle in the God's Eye with Aemond that won't happen till Season 4, so most of the Isle of Faces Green Men, Weirwood visions, Three-Eyed Raven scenes that he got with Alys Rivers in Season 2 were just laying track work and lore building for that. Both for the larger prophecy of the Prince Who Was Promised, which they're kind of using to bind all the different prequels and spin-offs together across the Game of Thrones timeline, all the stuff that they're building towards with the White Walkers eventually, and also for Daemon's battle in the God's Eye during Season 4. So the idea that the God's Eye is just a really, really important place for a number of different reasons. People always complain when they add stuff to the shows that wasn't in the books, but the Green Men are an example of a cool bit of lore from the books that George R. R. Martin wrote that they just never had time for before House of the Dragon. So hopefully they'll do more stuff like this in future seasons and on other spin-off shows, prequel shows, where they add stuff from the books that they just haven't had time for before, but there's really cool bits of lore.
There are some maesters who have earned a link forged of Valyrian steel. This signifies knowledge of the higher mysteries.
Then there's also some new scenes from a battle most people are saying is going to be the show's version of the Fish Feed, featuring Jason Lannister, the Lannister army, Roderick Dustin, Roddy the Ruin, who's going to be played by Tommy Flanagan, who most of you remember from somewhere. He's a pretty notable actor. He's been in a ton of TV shows and movies. Roddy the Ruin was the Lord of Barrowtown and the head of House Dustin during the Dance of the Dragons. He's a member of the Winter Wolves, the Stark army, because he is from the north, and he's one of the leaders in this battle, in these battles that are happening in this part of Westeros. You remember all the Season 2 scenes with Cregan, Stark, and Jace. That was meant to show that the Starks were declaring for Rhaenyra. So Roddy the Ruin, all the Winter Wolves have declared for Rhaenyra. That's why they're fighting against the Lannister army here in the Greens. There are a lot of other background battle scenes too. You can see Brackens, Tullys, Winter Wolves, more House Dairy troops, all based on their sigils. It's going to be a lot of battles happening during the events of Season 3. There was also the Butcher's Ball, which happened just after the Fish Feed. The period of time they're covering in Season 3 has many smaller battles. We will see how they cover all these because they only have so much time, so many episodes. They might use some time jumps the way they did during the Battle of Burning Mill. There are a number of big deaths that happen during different battles and side characters that are important to the story that they can't skip over. I think most of the ones from the books, like the bigger, notable deaths, will happen the way they do in the books. The only major changes when it comes to who is wearing the plot armor, like the strongest plot armor, survives much longer than they did in the books, is them just pushing the Battle of the God's Eye to Season 4, and also keeping people like Rhaenyra, for example, till the very final episode. I think that everything that Ryan Condal, HBO, has said about Rhaenyra's character is that they view her as like the lead of the show, so the show is done when she is done. There are a number of other characters that they'll probably get rid of, kill off by the final season, but a lot of those you can move around in the timeline without completely breaking the timeline. There'll be a pretty decent body count during Season 3, but the body count in Season 4 will be way, way higher. But if there's any other Easter eggs or references that you spotted in the brand new footage, or questions you have about the lore or different characters that I didn't talk about, write them below in the comments and I'll add them to my future bonus videos. Like I said, if they do release the full trailer for Night of the Seven Kingdoms and New York Comic Con, I will totally do all the videos for it and whatever big news they announce, because there'll probably be a couple big announcements too. But there were a lot of people asking if George R. R. Martin is somehow going to announce the release date of Winds of Winter on the panel finally, like he's somehow magically finished Winds of Winter. But here's the thing. Everybody always thinks this every single year, every time he goes and does a panel somewhere. And every year, we always walk away disappointed, no Winds of Winter. So honestly, I think it's just better to assume that it's not done and he will not announce Winds of Winter, so that when eventually, someday in the distant future, when he does announce that he's finished it, it'll be a pleasant surprise. We will see what new lore they try to include from the books during Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Usually George R. R. Martin does chime in to help them with stuff like that too, especially if it wasn't spelled out very discreetly in the books that they're adapting for stories. There were a bunch of other scenes, a bunch of other footage that released a little while ago. I've already done a video for that. Click here for that video, and click here for my Night of the Seven Kingdoms trailer video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.